ladies and gentlemen, we have Kyle in the house. You saw his title there. We're always looking for our local leaders, and that's just part of what this show is all about. And so with that, we'll quickly jump in. Carroll House Furniture, we love those guys. They've done a lot to help our community. Most people are familiar with Brooke and Amy because you like nice things in your little castle we always talk about. And so with that, I will bring in a quick discussion about our sponsors there. As you can see them on the wall behind me. I'm going to put it over on our new slider. This is our expensive camera guy here. But he's here full time. Only had to pay him once. And we like using technology to make efficient what we're doing. So with that, give a shout out to those sponsors we have. And there's Carroll House. And then we'll give a shout out to your Little Castle sponsor, USA Mortgage, the Flowers team. A lot of exciting stuff coming up there that we're going to have going on with those guys. With that, I'm going to throw up on the wall, the TV wall. There's your Facebook page on wall number 1. And then wall number 2, there it is behind us, everybody. Check that out. We're going to click this to go to the home page and make sure everybody sees that. So welcome to the studio, Kyle, Randy. You guys, I want to start the show off to talk a little bit about the emphasis my parents have had on me. A little bit. We all had, hopefully, some people, whatever, but my parents, I'm fortunate to have 2 teachers. Right. Was that good? That was not fun as a kid. I'll tell you that. Because they always were trying to correct me. Always keep maybe it worked out. I don't know. We'll see. Somebody say no, Cowboy. There's definitely some stuff they still need to work on. But with that, I was really fortunate to have 2 people that emphasized me how important education was. And would you guys agree? If you become more educated, you become more powerful. Ooh, now we're getting is that an oxymoron? How's that? No. Power and education, and that's what we're talking about today. So with that, welcome Kyle and Randy. You guys, let's talk about this. We've got I'm gonna put the wide picture shot up there so everybody can see you guys. Education is key, and I think the real reason I was turned on about what you guys were turned on again. Power. All right, here we go. Is because there's a real caveat to this industry that's emerging, right? Solar's been around for a long time, but it's also kind of emerging with regard to how many people are doing it and how many places it impacts, and then what happens with all that. And I want you guys to talk about how that you guys have kind of identified a touch point, at least, that people have to be considerate of that most people don't talk about. And I'll leave that up to you, Kyle, to start off with, I think. What do you think?
I would agree. I think that the industry is up and coming. It's a growing industry. It's still, I will say, a young industry across the board as far as what can be done to make yourself more energy efficient or energy independent. But what we do something different with it is because of where solar gets placed. For most homeowners, they don't have the option to do it out in the yard away from their house. They're doing it on their house. They're doing it on the roof. And as a roofing professional for almost 20 years, and having customers calling us because they have an issue between a previous roofing company and a solar company and what we can do, their roof is leaking and there is nobody responsible. So what we have done is, in the grand scheme of things, we've made ourselves a real asset to the industry in that we will warranty both sides of it. We came from a roofing background, so we are certified in roofing from all of the major manufacturers of roofing. In our market, the 5 biggest ones are GAF, CertainTeed, Owens Corning, Tamco, and IKO. So those are the main ones that are out on every house that we see regularly. But because of that, we go into it from a roofing perspective. When we put solar on that house, we're going to make sure that their roof warranty stays intact.
That, to me, ladies and gentlemen, was one of the key points of the discussion. When we do a pre-interview, we vet everybody to say, hey, come in and tell us about your business. And some people were like, maybe it's not a good fit at this time based on whatever, and where we're each at with what we're trying to do to help the community and where they're at with their business. But when you talk to me about the fact that you have identified a major industry. A lot of people don't understand, like, we've talked we did our pregame prep. We did a lengthy pregame prep today, which was good, I think, because a lot of times we spend an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, not quite 2 hours today, but close, talking about what's the core message that you bring, something that you are really bringing to the community to help them make a better community, a better situation for their family, et cetera. And when you talk about warranties, that's when people start getting, okay, warranty, what's a warranty? Well, warranty is like if something goes wrong, right, they're going to fix it and make it right. Right? Is that an easy way to say warranty? And so in this particular situation, you're not talking about, and the example I talked to you about was essentially a electronics device, right? So everybody has electronics. There's like, I'll hold up the iPad we have here, and I've got every device. So we're off script already. I have a series of questions. I write them down because I want to make sure we cover them. But if I were to take this iPad, or this is actually an Android tablet, and just say, let's open this thing up and start pulling it apart just because I want to make a change to it or some kind of what did I just do?
Well, you avoid the warranty.
I just voided my warranty. So now who's going to fix this thing? Nobody.
Right.
And on a $150, $250, $500 device, not a critical issue. I mean, it's something that obviously we don't want to just throw out the window because we're ended up in a situation where, I just wasted the device that I paid money for. But when you're talking about a roof, is it the most expensive part of the house? I think some people argue it is. And now you're talking about, okay, I got my solar, but I got another problem I just created by having that. So talk about that if you would, because I think people really need to understand that.
Although I would say the roof is not the most expensive component of a house, it's the most important. It protects all the other components of your house. Without your roof, you don't have your house. Now, with putting solar on the roof, technically if I come out today and you had your roof put on yesterday, if I come out today and put solar on it, I void your roof warranty. Now, there are caveats and there are ways to make sure that doesn't happen. So what we have done, because we are certified with all the major manufacturers, both on roofing and solar, we know that going into it, that with your roof, your brand new roof that you got done, as long as it meets the manufacturer guidelines and we can do the inspection and make sure everything is right before we start, we will sign for the liability on that roof. We'll make sure that your roof warranty stays intact. We will let the manufacturer know that we're putting solar on it, that we're unlocking the shingles and we're going to reseal them using their preferred methods. When we do everything the way we're supposed to, we sign for liability and used to have an intact roof warranty and a solar warranty when we're done.
That's big. I think a lot of people need to talk about that. So the question I often ask everybody, and it's part of what we talk about when we start the show, is why did you decide to get into this industry? And I think the answer might be, and I'll put words in your mouth because I want you to answer this, but it's because you saw a need. And there was, as a roofing expert for years, is that right?
Right.
And then you see the opportunity. There is an emerging industry with a way to make a living in solar, and you saw the problem that most people are running into that I've never heard anywhere else. I know a lot of people in the industry, and I don't talk about people in both roofing and solar, and it just never occurred to me, like, what happens as you're pulling up stuff and doing and getting into the roof, and then they start pointing fingers at each other. You've experienced this already a little bit.
Right. I personally have not, but I have been in the middle of it where
I've
helped customers that have.
Right.
In fact, we have a couple of customers right now that we're going out to replace a roof that was damaged because of that. So we're going in to replace a roof and then reinstall the solar to take care of it.
Because I'm going to jump over to Randy about this one, I think, as our pregame discussion would help me to have enough knowledge of. This is where you end up with, okay, now we got to fix these things, and who's going to pay attention to what's going on here? And now you're going, oh, wait a minute, now we don't have a solar system, was where I was going with that.
Right.
We no longer have a solar system working that we're paying for monthly, and now we're paying for a roof also maybe because of the repairs necessary. How important is this for people to understand?
It's very important. When looking at your roofing and your solar that's going on the roofing, this is a component that it's going to provide power to your home. Well, without it working, you're not getting any power production to the home. So if you have a roofer come out and take your solar off, and it takes him 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to get a solar professional involved to put the solar back on the roof, you're spending all of that time paying an electric bill and your solar payment.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to start the show off, because I felt as though that was something that literally impacts in a major way something that was not discussed with me any other time in my life when I talk about business and get into this kind of part of this is a core element of the houses. And I'm sure other companies out there that do a similar thing, this crosses their mind. But for me, it was a matter of you guys really address it, because it is who wants to have a warranty voided,
Right?
because they tried to make an upgrade to their
house.
their house and everything like that. All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about it. What was the path that would tell me to give away a little bit more of the background for you, Kyle, that led you here, and so people understand? I kind of just gave a quick version of that, but give it a little more detail for that, if you would.
Well, I started in construction when I was in high school. So 16, started in construction, following orders and being a grunt. After nearly 20 years, 18 years, in and out of the industry between my military service and then coming back to it, I have been in construction for 18 years. We added solar to the lineup a few years ago because of the growing need, but it more or less, I started out as just somebody that wanted to work and then got good at it. I got good at doing the roofing specifically, was doing roofing and home exteriors for 12 of 18 years in the industry.
Well, that's where I talk about the experience that people have with regard to being an expert. And so for me, that's something that you need to know the background somebody has before you say, hey, I'm just going to spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000.
Sure.
Buying some new tennis shoes. I don't really care where the person had a history of buying. And I bought my latest pair of tennis shoes are showing up here today at my house by delivery from Nike, by the way. And I just said 9 because they didn't have a 9.5 or whatever. I'm like, yeah, they'll fit, it'll be fine. But I'm making a $57 decision there.
Right.
Here we're talking about what's the average solar system cost these days, as I jump around on you a little bit.
The average solar system for the people that we've helped so far is around $24,000 to $30,000.
Okay.
It very much depends on the electric needs, but it also depends on the house. Because as much as I would like to tell you that your neighbor and you could have the same size solar, it's not really the case. Your house is tilted at just a slightly different angle, facing east or south or whatever way your roof is facing. It makes a difference, and also the pitches of your roof make a difference on how much that can produce. So, like your house might have on yours actually, it's a 612 or 712 pitch, but on some of the other ones that I have
Came by
seen,
my house to check that out, I guess. That's part of it.
some of them in the other subdivision, they've got steeper roofs.
Okay.
So you just get used to it when you drive by them enough. You can see them, and it's pretty common for us to drive by and be able to tell. It's within two pitches. We're pretty spot with it.
Yeah, because as you look at the roofs that are out there, there's just some that are flat, very few. Mm-hmm. Some are at this angle, and some are at that angle, it seems. But
right.
That's about it, right? It's not like, but he's got a gauge. What angle do you want your roof at? And then it's not that. It's this, that, or this.
Right.
That's pretty much it. So you can look at that and know that. And that's important because the way the sunlight hits the roof, then it's a matter of how much do these panels. If you would, let's jump in and show me a little bit about these panels since we have these here on our view here, and talk about these, if you would, a little bit for me, Randy, for a second, why you like these panels and what you got going on here.
So to give you concept, this panel here is a binary of a standard panel and a Solaria panel. These are two different types of technology. The technology at its core is essentially the same, but if you look at all of these extra areas here in your standard panel, there's a large percentage of surface area that is not able to actually utilize the energy that's hitting it. Solaria actually put together a new type of system to where they've gotten rid of all of the bus bars and all of the intermediary connections within the panel and overlaid them to be a constant connection from end to end, meaning you're utilizing all of the surface area and maximizing your potential for energy production from that panel's face.
Okay, so that's bottom line. It affects the efficiency, the output, the watts that you can generate.
And it's American made.
Okay, and that's key to this. All right. I want to step back a little bit now as we get into our discussion, because this show is designed to allow people to get to know you. And because it seems so often these days we're just like click, Facebook, text, email, spam, and I don't ever get to anybody sit down and say, hey, well, let's have it. I'm about to spend 30 grand here. Let's have a little chit chat here, all right? And talk about this. I want to ask, because Randy, you were just talking, so I'll jump back over to Kyle. Tell me, Kyle, what it is that you did as a kid, so that we can understand it. And we're asking, what's the hobby you had as a kid that kind of led you to where you're at? Because I always like the connection there. It seems people have. When I was a kid, I loved this, and that led to the passion they have here. And when you've got a passion for something, you generally become good at it, and that's important for people to know.
As a kid, I grew up in scouting and as I would say a military brat. But while my dad was serving, I was a tinkerer. I was the kid that gets in trouble for breaking the toaster with a butter knife because he wanted to see how it worked. So I learned how to fix stuff. I learned how to take care of the things that were important to me, fixing my own bike, taking care of the things I wanted. But more importantly, as the direct connection to why I brought up Boy Scouts, I was passionate about being outside, passionate about the outdoors, passionate about going camping in the fresh air and everything that goes with that. And so the combination, I would say, of the two things led me down a path towards renewable energy or solar as we see it now.
Well, and that's, again, back to why this stuff becomes important for people to understand with regard to their big purchase. You want to have somebody who's an expert that's going to talk about and know what they're doing so that this gets done correctly.
Right.
Because I share just about everything. People know me, I'm almost too much of an open book, but I just like to share with people. It's worked well for me. I found that the people share the most, help the most. It kind of reciprocates. Here again, those people take advantage of that, but mostly people get it. And I'd say with that, we spent a good half hour extra getting this show set up for you because we wanted to talk about the caveats and the specifics. And I think that's what people need to pay attention to, because of those people that do spend the time taking the details, the money they always talk about is always in the details, right? Mm-hmm. And if you get those details taken correctly and implemented with a high level of quality, I guess you'd say, then now you're talking about a good quality product that's going to last. You leave one or two little minor details out, you could cause havoc. That's what you're talking about with somebody's like, they're just going to undo the old panels and put down the new roof and then put the new panels in there. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute, because you get any of those done incorrectly just a little bit. Talk about some of the problems there, Randy, if you would, because I think that's something that might be a good question for you, given what we talked about.
A good example, let's take a typical detach and reset style of roof. Let's say, somebody's insurance company bought their roof, but they have solar on there. Well, to detach the solar, you have to detach all of the connections from panel to panel. If it's a microinverter system, that's extra technology mounted on the panel. If it's a string inverter, you're undoing the entire string of panels going down into the house where the inverter is located. Those components sometimes do not go back together the way that they were taken apart. For example, a grounding lug or a grounding wire that goes on your racking system is a continuous unit that goes all the way down. That's one part that has to be replaced, that is made of copper and is very expensive to replace at the time of a detach and reset. You can't reuse it because if you cut that grounding strap, it's no longer grounding.
Okay, so now you're talking about some of the in-depth details with regard to things that people need to pay attention to, or their system stops working.
Right.
That's important. Why do you spend $30,000 on something and it doesn't continue to function? But let's go focus more on as we've covered that. And I don't want to beat that up. I don't want people to get too afraid. The reason you have experts like yourselves is because you do make sure these things run right.
Right.
Correct. That's where you kind of carved out your niche, and that's why other companies are bringing you guys in to say, hey, come and make sure this thing's done right. And you're kind of been the arbitrator, if I understand, between the roofing company and the solar company at times. Tell me a little bit about what we talked about.
I was more involved with the insurance company than either side. I try very hard to stay out of the litigation side of things. Okay. But when dealing with the insurance companies who have that issue, they came to us because we were the only ones that had the experience with both. To where do we see the problem and what do we see it as? But I want to go back to that previous question for a second, because I actually just got off a service call yesterday with somebody that had taken the solar panels off, got the new roof put on, and had somebody put the solar panels back on. They still had to call us. We came out to fix it because when they got their solar panels put back on, their solar wasn't working anymore. And it wasn't a complicated problem. It wasn't a grounding problem or anything major that had to be hardware related to fixed. But it could have led to a house fire because they were wired backwards. When I got there and started testing everything, they wired it back in backwards. So it was in reverse polarity, and it was an unsafe running conditions to have it on. So we actually had to.
Then you're talking about a fire that takes down the whole house, and then who pays for that?
Right.
Oh, brother. All right.
So. But that it does happen. You would be surprised the number of times that stuff can happen. But if we address it right the first time, you don't have that problem.
Yeah. Back to the do it right the first time, rather than do it twice, which costs. I'm saving a few bucks because I'm going to do it quick and I'm going to take some shortcuts. But do it right the first time, and then you save yourself a lot of money.
That's right.
Being cheap, we always say this on the show, being cheap can be very expensive.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Is that an oxymoron? An oxymoron? All right, well, let's talk a little bit more. What about your guys' business fuels your passion? Kyle, start off with that one for me, if you would, a little bit.
The business fuels my passion because I am making a difference. I mean, one house at a time. I'm helping homeowners save money. It might take them 4 or 5, some even 10 years to realize it, but we're saving homeowners money. That's one of the things that led to the passion, but we are also getting to change the world for our kids, and we're getting to make it easier for the environment. It's better to take care of it now than to wait. If we don't take care of it, it's going to get worse.
Randy, tell me the same thing. What's your passion about this, and why do you enjoy doing this?
So the one thing that makes me passionate about this business is when I get to deal with a client that has experienced an issue, like something failed that's hardware related in their system, or something else that they haven't realized, like their energy usage. Being able to really go in depth and say, this is where you're really spending your money. If we change this, we can save you money without doing anything else. But if we add solar or other energy efficient practices into the mix, we can really make a big impact. And it not only helps you at the micro level, but at the macro level for the environment that you live in. I mean, we all have to share the environment, and being able to make a positive impact towards that for our future and our kids' future is helpful. Well, and that's one thing that drives me.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that, and so I want to zoom back out here. We got our wide camera open here, and I want to talk a little bit more because we talked a lot about the roofing liability. There's a note I had here to talk about the panels on the roof. Show me a little bit about it if you can. We already talked about that. That's the actual solar panel. Hold that up for me if one of you would grab that. And we are on the wide angle shot there, and you can see that. So that's something. Where does this thing fail? It's not this fails so much, but it's the wires going into it, more often, or the.
So if you look closer in here, do you see these little silver lines that are in the vertical?
Okay, and I'm going to zoom in for you on that. Hold that up. You can see. Hold it up just a little bit. There you go. Okay.
But in here in these silver lines, they look like little metal clips.
Okay, I see those.
So those.
I'm going to zoom all the way in here, everybody. Bear with me here, and you're going to have to hold this up. And,
Let's see.
And let's go that way. There it is. Right. Okay.
There we go. So if you can see, right? Oh, I'm doing this backwards. There we go.
I don't want to push you over, but.
So you see these little clips right here. They look like teeth or interlinking clips.
Yeah.
Those are bus bars that carry current from one cell to the next. Now, if those fail, if those get impacted by hail, or even in manufacturing, that can fail because bus bars are just thin wires.
Okay.
So what it's doing is the reason why we picked some of the products we have because of their difference in technology. Randy was talking about the technology. Do you see any bus bars on this panel?
No.
Okay. That's because instead of using bus bars or exposed wires, what they've done is taken, if you think about it like you're holding a hand of cards and you've got an overlay of cards in your hand.
Okay.
That's what they're doing here. Instead of having wires that are connecting them, they've got an overlay of the silica across it. So it actually makes it more efficient and less areas or problems for it to go bad.
Very important, as you can see there, ladies and gentlemen. And get into the details on what's going on in here. Lots of little places that, and again, these panels last for a long time. They're warranted for a long time, but you get one little glitch like something like this, and now you're looking at a
Correct.
big repair that's going to cost, and hopefully it's covered under warranty.
And the panels are warranted for 25 years for most of them. It's 20 or 25.
Okay.
It depends on the brand because there's a lot out there. As much as I would like to tell you I know them all, I don't. I know that there are 20,000 products in the solar industry. I use maybe 1,000 different ones for different purposes.
20,000 parts out there that people have to.
Right.
How many of them are going into the average solar roof when you've got that going on?
About 200, maybe a little more. Okay. Not including the parts that those parts are made out of, the electrical components. There are some parts that I don't know all the names of the parts in them.
Yeah.
I know how to put them together. I know how to work them, but I don't know how they're put together, to be honest.
Yeah, internally they've got a bunch of moving things going on, or not moving things, but components that have been assembled. Wow. So that's what we talk about. American made. There are just a few. A lot of things are imported.
Correct.
And then all of what you deal with that. I don't want to blow people away with too much information about being concerned with, oh, I've got this manufacturer, I've got this product, this particular, but help people understand overall, like you're talking here, 20 plus 25-year warranties. What do I need to be concerned with as a consumer?
We want to focus those things more to the production, what they're going to guarantee that they're going to do. Every manufacturer, every tier 1 manufacturer, which if you're getting it supplied from any reputable company, you're going to get a tier 1 product. It has to go through NREL testing. It has to go through permitting approvals. Those are requirements for our market here, for the IRC. But if you're doing it, for example, like campers, an unpermitted or a off-grid application, you might use cheaper product. You may use tier 2, even tier 3 product that's out there. But I don't show anybody any of that. We don't show any tier 2 or tier 3. We only show tier 1 product. Yes, we do import. We also use American made, but it just depends on what is going to be the best fit for the customer. Most of the American products, they don't have bifacial panels, which by itself sounds cool. But what it is it means it's great for, I'm going to say pergola applications or elevated roof applications, where you're looking up at it from the bottom and you can see through it, and you use it like a sunroof or a tinted roof, where you can see through it and still see light.
So now we've gotten into the depth. This is why you have experts, ladies and gentlemen, that will know what they're talking about when you come into spending a lot of money like you're talking about here with people. And the idea is to spend the money so that you're going to save a lot of money. And you do have an analysis that shows people, here's your kilowatts per hour in the grid and how much, and how you're going to be selling this much back, right? And,
right.
And there's some incentives right now that the government has put in place to get people to buy these things. And all of those things you're offering as well, I would assume, right?
Right.
And we talked about that a little bit. But the key to what we're talking about here is the fact that you need to know all about the way the system works. And that's why I think you offer a little bit, your angle, I think, that is interesting, is that you've got the expertise with regard to what you need to do to make sure this thing runs properly. And I hadn't had that discussion. And not that any of the other experts that we know, they don't have that kind of knowledge. I don't know. They were very knowledgeable, but in this particular instance, I hadn't heard that before, and that to me is a major concern. So that's when we put the cowboy hat on, because we're talking about the community and helping people, and that's what the Cardinal Cowboy stands for. And so when you bring that out in that discussion, that's why I said, we got to put the hat on. So that's what I was doing when I was off camera there for everybody. A couple things we want to share with everybody. I want to put up, you do have some nice ratings, and I thought the one that caught my attention most, but I want to go to Randy first. Randy, tell me about what it is that your clients expect from you. And when you're getting into a discussion, walk me through the process a little bit. When somebody says, "Hey, yeah, I want to do this," let's talk about it. How does it start?
So a typical process would involve us first assessing their energy needs. So a lot of times what we will do is get an electric bill from either Ameren or an applicable utility that's providing power in the area we're working. So what we'll do is we'll assess how many kilowatt hours per month these homes are using and annually. And we will compare what our forecasted solar system proposal can actually generate on that roof. And that also goes back into looking at the pitch of the roof, the style of the house, which way it's facing, and being able to try to utilize the most of either roof area or ground area that's available to be able to take care of the consumption need that this customer is experiencing. So, and other ways we can try to consolidate their needs to come into a lower usage factor is by looking at things like LED lighting, insulation, and other energy efficient appliances for the home. So we look at that and we build a system with a solution, not just a package deal like a lot of other industry providers are providing. What they do is they basically do a cookie cutter install for everybody instead of looking at each individual's needs and seeing how they can really help them based on their needs.
Well, that's what we're talking about, because you've got to get into the specifics and how these people should be addressing this as again, a major decision that they want to be on top of. So with that, I want to go in and show everybody a little bit about what we've got on our TV walls. So we'll display this a little bit for everybody. A little bit of introduction there. You've got your, that's your Facebook page there. So let me pull that up for everybody to see here, because when you're talking about the things you need to do to convey your message to the community. The TV wall will not lie, right? We're going to put that up on the wall for everybody here, so take a look. As you can see here, here is your website, and then like we talked about in here, I'm going to show everybody your Facebook page. And as somebody who's been in the country, in the business with the company working on this for a while, yeah, there's a lot of times you need to have that page out there, and you've got a lot of good information out there, and we appreciate you do that. You guys are based out of Fenton, which is nice because that's where that's where I grew up, but as a kid, and so I've got some friends down there, and we've talked about some of the people, as you know, that were buddies of mine. With that, though, I want to also then show you guys, everybody, your page for your website, and let's take a second to go over that with you, everybody here, because you've got some good information here, but you need a reliable solar panel company. You got here the solar panel installation, the solar generators, the financing, and a great way to contact you guys. So it seems as though you're doing a good job, and I always try to emphasize to people, check out their website. And if the website looks good, then yeah, you've got somebody that probably is on the right start. Then you got to figure out how much do they really know. And that's where I don't want to put as much time into the website with you guys, because you guys are super knowledgeable. I want to hear you guys talking more than viewing the website. But I want everybody to see this. I also make mention, as we pull up here, I want to show everybody, you guys do have an A+ rating with the BBB, and that's important for a lot of people to understand, because as ratings go, you do want to have a company that's been out there and addresses the issues that may come up, and takes care of customers, but you don't get the BBB's A+ unless you're doing things right. I know companies who have had not so good BBBs, and there was some reason, and a lot of times it was something that had to be addressed, but you guys did a great job there with all of that, so kudos to you guys on that. So let's jump back in here, and a couple notes that we talked about, and that is, when you're getting into these, a lot of people talk about batteries. Who wants to tell me about batteries and how they play into this whole scenario?
I'll let Kyle lead that one.
All right, is that Kyle's?
I'll take that. So, batteries in the industry is an ever-changing, or it's always going to be a debate on what you should do or want to do. The trick to it is now it's not required as much as it used to be, or to be off-grid it is. You have to have batteries when you're going off-grid, but for the majority of the people we help, batteries aren't required. Now, there is a purpose to have them. If the grid goes down for any extended period of time, some people don't want to lose power for 5 minutes. Some people don't want to lose power for, or if they're out of power for an hour or 3 hours, it becomes detrimental to them. So we have to look at the needs of the customer to answer that. But batteries work, or the limitations of a battery is where we have to make sure that people understand why. And if you think about batteries in their purest form, the easiest way to explain it is to just think about it like a remote control, like you have at home. You have some of your remotes have your two batteries that are kind of going end to end, and those make it so that remote uses more power than not. Then you have other remotes where your batteries are pointing two different directions.
Interesting, okay.
And when you do that, the battery life on those remotes, you don't change them but maybe once a year because you don't want them to corrode. But the battery life lasts forever in those remotes. They use a lower amperage or lower draw.
Wow, okay.
So solar batteries are the same concept. They can be wired in different ways. They can be done in different ways to address the need of the homeowner. But when you do them, if you do them right and you present them right, there is a limitation. So we have to make sure that we explain that as we go. And with the batteries, we know that they continue to change from what I'm going to describe as marine batteries or car batteries. Yes, there are still some solar jobs out there that have them. It's not a very common practice to use those anymore. Most of the batteries are a lithium or a form of lithium battery, or power walls like the Tesla Powerwall that you can go online and everybody talks about it. It's a great name and it's a great battery, but there are a lot of other products out there that do the same thing. So like I started with the 20,000 products that are out there. We found some out there that you can do the same thing for $5,000 or you could do that very same job with it for $20,000. Which one's worth it to you?
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we talk about, the expertise necessary to have the pros that know what they're talking about. When you talk about saving somebody $15,000 just because they have one product presented to them that looks great and has been well promoted, but may not be the best fit, you want to talk to the expert. That's where I find it. I often go into, anytime I'm in a situation, I'm going, who do I know in this space? Who do I know is an expert? Because they're going to tell me the things that I won't find out publicly, that are going to take a ton of research. Marketing is great. I love marketing. It's what this is all really about, what we're doing here. But if you don't dig in, if you don't get past the flash, glitter, all the excitement, then what are you missing? And I think, wow, you're really helping me to understand there's so much more that needs to be known, and you really do know that information. So you guys are on the ball here with regard to all of that. Talk to me a little bit about financing. And I know that's a big issue for a lot of people, but how are these things financed, and what are some of the incentives that you can talk about?
Well, the financing is very easy for most homeowners, and I'm going to go to it as a three-part answer. Because financing, we have an application that we apply, we have you do for, and you can go through one of 7 different avenues. But we've made agreements with all these companies to do that. Then you have one of those avenues is a traditional solar lending options, but those options have what we call a dealer fee or an upfront cost to them. You get a great interest rate, but you're paying for that upfront to use their financing. So to take, for example, my average solar job, and for easy math, we're just going to say it's $30,000. I pitch you, and it's $30,000, but with that dealer fee, it's $40,000.
Wow.
And it legitimately, I've seen them as high as $15,000 on a house, the dealer fees on it. So they're not always. There is a huge range. It depends on what financing and which term you pick, but the dealer fees that are associated are really high. So that is one option. I try not to use them unless I have to. The one benefit to them is they're fast. So if you're trying to do something quickly, to turn a job in and out, those are instant approvals. We can get them done within a few hours.
Wow. Okay.
If you have a little more time and we can do it the way that we like, we go through local lending options, some of the local banks, or I have a credit union that we've been working with for the better part of 5 years that does green energy or electric vehicle financing separately. And their application is quick, but because of their process and because they're a small bank, they go through and they are limited to the number of people they can help at any given point. So we don't get every one of them approved, but we get 80% of them approved through there. And it's a better long-term benefit to the customer.
Wow. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we could go on for hours. I could tell you, and what just happened that I didn't mention as I normally do, because in the first 28 minutes, 30 seconds, that's the airtime that's on ABC. We're well past that. We're up to 37 minutes already and I have never done that before, but I got so engaged in what we're talking about here. So everybody, if you're watching now, that means you're watching it on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or our guests' social media, because we give everybody a copy that is part of the show that with what we do as a marketing thing for our guests. And so if you missed all that, I might take this little clip right here and edit it back in earlier to say, hey, all right, and here I'll say it. Hey, stay tuned for the full show, everybody, because on the full show, you're going to get tons more information. There's only 28 minutes, 30 seconds that airs on ABC. On the network that we're on is a national network that's the local affiliate here in St. Louis. So it's a top 25 market. But if you missed that and you want to watch the whole show, go watch the whole show. And then there's 2 versions of the show we give everybody. One that aired because we have to cut it and send it to ABC, and the other one is the full blown. And we decided after this for about 7 or 8 months, 10 months, we need to have more discussion than the original 28 minutes and cut everybody off. Okay, sorry, that's all we got. 28 minutes is a lot. Don't get me wrong. You get most of your discussions, most of your shows out there, you're lucky if you get 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But we want to give people that full half hour. And now you've got up to an hour or more, depending on how long I feel it needs to get the message out there to get everything conveyed to everybody. So please take the time to do that. I do have we were editing our titles, and let's see what it says here if I hit the right button. But there it is. Watch our speaker series. And there we go. And we got that too. I'm going to share everybody the video of the drone.
Okay.
That you've got shot that you have of your. So talk about this if you will. The audio will be playing. Everybody will still hear you. But let's put that.
But this is just reaching that point where it's a little uncomfortable to walk, but it's the perfect pitch for solar. The ideal pitch for solar is to be between a 7 and an 8.
Okay.
So this is in a good spot. It was a great install. It's got a good exposure.
Looks good. All right, I'm gonna fade it one more time. I'm checking our audio, and we might have to do a little editing on this show, which happens periodically. But let's go in there. Yeah, and there it went. So there's the rest of that video for everybody. Okay, very cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you want to talk about what you need to make sure that you have all of the angles covered, you like that? Make sure that you've got experts that can do it and are taking care of stuff. So, a couple more real important questions. I'd say, what is the one thing that sets you guys apart? I think it's kind of evident here with the discussion we've had, but if you had to sum it up, I'm going to start with Randy on this, but I want both of you to answer this question for me. Randy, what sets you guys apart?
I would say it's our in-depth approach to the client's needs. Like I'd said before, other companies just create a basic solution for everybody without looking at their needs individually. Everybody as an individual is different. Everybody's home individually is different, as well as their power consumption. Being able to determine what major factors are driving their power consumption needs and how you can address that and lower those consumption rates while providing a solution that provides power for the home. I don't know exactly how to wrap that up in a way that sounds great. We take a unique approach to everybody to make sure that we're taking care of them, not just a broad spectrum problem.
Yeah, here's another sale we can make, and we're going to get some business here, but every individual situation, even if the system is set up the same as everybody else, is going to still have its caveats to make it unique.
Right.
And you like to address it. Very important. Kyle, tell me the same thing.
I would say that in my opinion, one of the biggest things that separates us is the way that we handle the warranties. Being able to offer an all-inclusive warranty, whether we did that roof or not, and knowing how to, and making sure it's done right the first time.
And there's some military background that you guys have, where I've got a note here. It says military veterans values, but more importantly, the all-inclusive warranty. But talk about the military perspective for a lot of people. You served in our military. Is that what you're referring to? And that's what you were kind of ingrained in your background.
I did. I served, but I'm fourth generation military, and I grew up with it. And we work with military charities that we want to try to keep guys that come into this. So how do I say this? Everybody in our market, it's one of the biggest things in our market. The biggest happy days of the year for us is the 4th of July at Jefferson Barracks, and everybody goes down to watch it, and it's a great time. It's really, really hard for me. It's really, really hard for some other people. And some of those veterans, they don't like to be down there for that. They avoid it. Yeah. So I work with a charity that is putting veterans to work that have their own, I'm going to say, issues, the PTSD. But we help guys go back to work and get back into a real life, get out of their own head. And so we try to go at this from in a military perspective. We want to be able to do it right. We don't want to do things twice. We want to take care of everything and everybody around us the best way we can.
Well said, and that's something I think is an emphasis as people have seen the Cardinal Cowboy and what we do, and we run around St. Louis. We've worked with over 250, I think is the number we're over now, with the number of charities that we've just engaged with and try to promote and share, and sometimes actively involved. But there's so much I feel like we need to do to give back, and it's just like, that's not just a thing to do because it makes you feel good. It's because it actually contributes, and it does reciprocate that whole, if you're doing good for others, then somebody might see that and it comes back for you. When you're not doing those things to help other people, you're really hurting yourself. And we like to emphasize that little caveat there about why it's so important. I think not just to help charities for the sake of helping charities, but to help this whole system work that we've got here on this little planet. Tell me, what is one mistake though that consumers often make? Because there's so often people are getting into this and they're like, yeah, let's get it. I think I've done my research, I've done my digging, I've talked to a couple of people, and the mistake they still make very often, what would you say that is?
I would say the biggest mistake in our industry that is made often by consumers is the way that it's financed, because they get excited and they want to do it fast. When if you give us an extra 2 days, an extra 3 days at the beginning, it will probably help save you more money if we get to do it.
Yeah, that's a big one, and as you start to weigh things out, because we put a lot of discussion with regard to what it is that people should be worried about with their warranty, because that's a one-time thing that could be very expensive if it fails. but statistically, I guess that's going to be a very small percentage versus everybody needs to be worried about the financing.
Right.
And so that's not just something that might be something you have a problem with. It is a core thing that, like, before you get started, you're going to deal with 100% of the time, every time, right? And make sure you get that financing. So I was kind of surprised to hear you say that, because I know we kind of beat up the whole warranty thing, and it is such a critical component. But that's very important. It's something that doesn't get addressed, and it can really bite you. But the financing, wow, just as much. And I didn't realize the numbers on that. When you're talking about $10,000 more.
Just because
you didn't take the time to analyze a little bit.
Well, the trick is it sounds good. I get 25 years at 3%. But if I got 25 years at 6%, but it didn't cost me $10,000, which one's cheaper?
Right. Yeah, a lot of people
And
cost of money.
it's just the cost of money. It's how you balance your numbers and what you do. It's how we get to present and show you the real solution, because there are instances where that dealer fee does make more sense for certain applications. When the system is small enough and you don't need a large array, it does make sense to actually go that route for the lower interest rate. So we do offer them. I just only use them when it is beneficial for the customer.
Talk to me a little bit about the technology. I know is another issue that people just don't keep up with. They don't understand it. And you were talking about the different types of circuitry that's involved. And I'm looking at some of the notes over here. But if I claim to know everything, then I'm a liar, right?
Right.
And so how does technology play into this? And I want Randy to answer. Well, go ahead with that, Kyle, and tell me. And I want Randy to talk about that a little bit too, if that's all right.
The fact that there is so many components, if I tried to tell you that I knew everything about all of them, I would be lying to you. There's nobody that's good enough to do that. Now we can talk about the three major parts, and I can say in most string inverters this is what would happen. That's probably true, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I know what to do with yours or that one product, because the problem is as the industry changes, it changes a lot and it changes quickly. To give you just a little background perspective of it, in 2 years, we have gone from 270 watt panels still in production, being made, to 520 watt panels in production, and everything in between. So the products have changed enough in that time period that we have doubled production in nearly 3 years.
You're talking about the overall performance of the actual
The panel
itself has doubled in 3 years.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. So now you're getting twice the amount of energy out of it.
Correct. So the twice amount of energy out of per square foot of panels.
Okay. Something to pay attention to. Randy, what would you tell me is the biggest thing you've seen technology-wise?
So I would say in the differences in technology for the way that solar actually interfaces between using microinverters or using a string inverter or adding optimizers in case of heavily shaded areas, it's important to look at the products that you are considering putting on your home. And it's also important, this goes back to the last question as well, it's also important when you're getting these estimates together to compare what products are being used. Is this a string inverter system with a battery? Is this a microinverter system with a battery or without a battery? And those all change, one, the costs, the warranty structures on some parts and components, like the microinverters, for example. They used to have very, very low warranties, under 10 years. Now they're actually catching up and getting into the 20 and 25 year range as well with companies like Enphase. But it's also a big component when you're looking at the difference in the technology. You do want to compare and make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. So if you have two companies competing against each other and you wonder why there's a $10,000 difference, it's probably in the equipment.
Well, that's, again, where we're getting at it, because you want to talk about this from an expert perspective, that if you don't take the time and you don't have an hour to invest to research and figure this out, then we're making this video so you can.
Right. And it's just like buying a car. You don't just go, I want that, and go home with it. You test drive it, you look at it, you learn about it before you make a decision.
Very important stuff. Well said. We did have a little chat that we might focus with some of our discussion with you, specifically Kyle, and if you want to do that, let's do that.
Sure.
And then we'll have Randy on. Randy's going to actually help us with some of the stuff in the studio so we can make the show a little more exciting. But tell me a little bit about that then. As the owner, somebody who's doing a great job to make a difference in our little planet, and with it's a very unique perspective you bring that makes it pretty exciting, I think, because, wow, there's so much to know in any particular caveat niche that anybody has. You really bring some great stuff, and I just kind of want to throw that out there because there's so many people that don't know what they're talking about, but they're out there selling stuff anyway,
Well, and we appreciate it.
That's kind of scary when you think about it. And like I said, if it's a bag of chips, one thing, but if it's something like this, it has such an impact on the financial background of a community and or of a family in their community. That's a lot to consider. So, tell me one thing that you did that you really felt like you helped a client, and when you said there's this client and maybe somebody else's client that you had to fix, or maybe it was a client you had that something didn't work out, but you went back and made it right. Give me one example you've got of something like that if you can.
I would say that I get to feel that feeling where I help a client a lot because of the way that saving the client's money at the end. But I would say that even though we get that satisfaction out of the install when we're done, and we get to show that, some customers are just more memorable for that. And so I'm going to say it is for this: the customer had solar installed before we ever got involved, before we met him. But they called me because they kept having inverters fail. And it was 4 inverters in 3 years that failed, and they didn't know why. And the customer also told me at that time when they called me to, one, figure out what was going on, and 2, they told me they wanted to have batteries installed. So at the time I go out and do the inspection, I'm looking at the system, and to be honest, I almost missed the problem the first time because I didn't see it. It took me a second to look at it before I found the problem. But being out there and seeing the system and understanding, 1, what to look for, and 2, why is this inverter failing? Because it didn't look like it should be. Everything that I could see looked fine. But when you start realizing that, well, I'm gonna use a phrase that everybody can relate to: water rolls downhill.
Right.
Well, when you don't make sure that everything is right on the top, it doesn't always make it right at the bottom. So when I'm servicing something and we're testing it from the bottom and everything looks fine, but it's not working, in this particular case, the problem was on top. So the conduit was leaking from the rooftop, and it was making the inverters fail. They did get the inverter replaced under warranty, and we because the other company couldn't, or had already replaced it multiple times, they nixed the warranty. They washed out the warranty. So because I represented that manufacturer as well, I went out on a warranty call to replace the inverter. We also installed batteries, and unfortunately, in this particular instance, one of the batteries that we installed was bad from the install. Don't know if we caused the problem or if it was caused before us. I won't say that mistakes don't happen, because it does, but we had to go back out and replace a battery on that install. Even though we were fixing it, we had to go back out one more time and fix that battery, replace the battery. So, but in this case, they installed 4 batteries, so it wasn't like they were completely out when the battery failed, but it was still something we wanted to take care of. We sold them something, we want to make sure it's right. So we did take care of it, but it started with a service call that turned into a battery that we went out and installed.
Well, I mean, it's amazing all of what goes into running a business, and part of that is to take care of customers and to make sure that everything is done right. And somebody there, I've experienced it. Everybody has. Somebody just needed to take one extra little step, and everything would have been fine.
Right.
But they didn't. And so now we've got to go back and make 7 or 8 different extra steps that nobody else really wants to go after because they got other things to deal with. But it's the people I found that go those extra steps. Another famous quote, I'd like to quote from my dad, who's watching from above: "Excellence is achieved by doing a little more." And it's just like, you don't have to be expert and do everything right all the time and work 24 hours a day. You just need to do things better than everybody a little bit. And that seems like the approach that you guys have. And that's what I think is what sets you guys apart and really makes it exciting for our community to see some of those leaders and share some of your tricks of the trade, if you will, and how you've become the experts that you are. So we're really excited about that. Tell me the process, though. When somebody wants to get started with you guys, walk me through the process. What does somebody do?
Well, we start with analysis of the electric bill. We break down what their consumption needs are. We'd like to do it over a 12-month minimum average. If we don't get a full year, it's really hard to be accurate, because like for almost everybody in St. Louis can relate. Your summer electric bills are usually higher than the rest of the year. There's a reason for that.
Right.
So we don't want to look at 1 month and try to build a system for that. We want to make sure that we're doing it to take care of your real needs. After we get to do the analysis, we'll design a system on your roof and show you the best solution we can. And sometimes that includes doing things like, well, we're going to install insulation in the attic while we're here to reduce your need for so much power. By doing the insulation, it will reduce your electric consumption needs by 8 to 10%. So if we know that going into it and we do all these things ahead of time, we'll plan your system to be the most optimum use of your money to get you the best result possible.
Well, and again, we're talking about how this thing ends up being a very complicated mesh that people need to acknowledge. And I didn't realize we were talking about this before. I'm throwing in, again, another caveat here that we've got that is something we will discuss. But bottom line is, this is becoming something that everybody's going to have to engage at some point, it seems, because there's a big push for this worldwide. And out in California, you're saying, tell me about that California caveat, because that was really interesting to me. I didn't realize. So if I do it in California, does it come in the rest of the world? And there, people are going to have to engage in this, it seems, or at least take advantage of it because it's beneficial. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, in California, they have state mandates where as roofs are getting replaced, they're requiring solar get put on them. Now, do I see that happening here? Not for a long time if it does, but it is possible. But realistically, it is becoming more prevalent and more commonplace to see solar being installed on homes, because even here, even us, we are seeing periodic power outages. It might only be for a couple of minutes, but we're starting to see periodic power outages. And due to some unfortunate circumstances, Ameren had closed one of the power plants in our market. So when they closed that power plant, we started to see power fluctuations across the grid from I'll say the north side of St. Louis, all the way down to almost Cape, is affected.
Wow.
From that plant closure. So we are going to start seeing periodic power outages. Now, I don't see them being long term, but it's going to be 10, 15 minutes a day where we may start seeing that. But again, that may not ever happen, but it's just the way that it looks on paper. It is realistically possible at this point.
Wow.
We haven't seen the summer load since that plant closure. So summer load is when we're going to see that, if we're going to.
Okay, so something for us to all pay attention to, because as the world changes and we're looking at the way power is becoming more and more important, you talk about the livelihood that is necessary for people to have EKGs and monitoring systems and anything that has to be powered just to sustain life, much less the caveats we have for, I want to be able to have my cell phone, my tablet, my TV, and my, you name it, every electronic device that we all need. Not critical, but important and very valuable in terms of conducting business and helping people and communicating. So those are all things that we'll definitely have to keep in mind, because this power thing is becoming very powerful. What is one big challenge that you feel like you've had to overcome in the whole picture of your history as a business owner?
Well, we probably picked the worst time in history to start a business. We started on the solar side specifically. We started right before COVID hit us, so we went into it with not enough employees, not enough business, and still managed to make it on our own without pulling any of the incentive monies from the government that you could go after, the PPP and all that. We didn't do any of that. So I would say COVID was one of the hardest things that we had to do, but we also had to learn how to do business a different way, because it is different now than it ever has been. Me in sales, as my career was developing, I could go to somebody's house and shake their hand and make them understand what I was doing. When we couldn't do that anymore, I had to learn how to do business a different way, and doing things online, on YouTube, on Facebook, and still the occasional, we'd still go to the house, but just the way that people interact is different now. So I had to learn how to do all of that differently, and learn how to do it a more streamlined way to make sure that we're still taking care of the customer. But in addition to that, I would say the other thing that we had to learn was, we are, as far as a solar company, we're an infant in compared to some other ones that are out there. I worked for other companies. We do installs for some of the national carriers, the bigger companies out there. But we are only 3 years old as a solar company. That being said, we had to learn what products to use, make the mistakes on what we were doing, and learn the right way and do the right research to make sure we were taking care of, one, our customers. We don't want to go back and fix stuff if we did go back and fix it, let's do it the right way so that we don't have to go back again. So we had our growing pains, and now we've got a pretty streamlined approach to how to take care of this the right way the first time out.
I can talk to that as somebody who's been in business and done my own thing a number of times, and as you go around, you learn very quickly. Here's some definite things that you want to make sure you get right, because it can cause a lot of havoc if you don't. Learn from your mistakes. If the people that don't make mistakes or take chances, is the other way of saying that, are the ones you got to be really wary of, because they haven't figured out, they don't know what's going to go wrong, and they say if you fail forward, and most of the successful people do that. And somebody like yourself, to the extent that you're not just a 3-year-old business, you've been doing business for 15, 20 years.
I've been in business for 15 years, just 3 years on solar specifically.
Right.
So we have our Home Options Made Easy and Pro Solar, and we still do both, but our primary business is solar now. It's where everything is going to be going. We can see it, and the number of customers that we've helped in the last 3 years has changed the face of how we do our business.
Well, tell me, if you would, as we finish up here, one major objection that people might have, and there's a lot of things I can imagine people like, well, it costs too much. I don't understand it. It's probably something else that most people. Once you understand this, it seems like it's kind of a no-brainer, because it's a matter of, does your house point the right way and all those kinds of things. But tell me, as a matter of doing this for many companies now, and being kind of an expert that's going in between and fix other issues with regard to what we talked about with the warranty and who's responsible. What's a big objection people have when they're thinking about this?
I think the biggest objection is, ultimately, it's going to be the price objection. It's going to be, I don't know if I can afford it. And I answer that every time the same way. Do you pay your electric bill now? Everybody answers the same way. Well, yeah, I wouldn't have power if I didn't. Then you can afford solar. We make it so you can. We have financing options that make it so you can do it. Now, is it always going to be every customer is going to save $70,000 over the course of their system? No, that's not always going to be the case. But realistically, $25,000, $30,000 is pretty average. Mm-hmm. So we do make sure that we do the best we can, and we take care of it and show you that you'll save your money. But being able to say that you can know that you can afford it. If you can afford your electric bill, you can afford solar. You just have to see how it's done the right way.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have really covered a lot of interesting, fun stuff here, and that's part of why we have such experts on the show, because we want to talk about these things. And it's a matter of getting somebody that knows as much as what you've seen here. And I know Randy, obviously helping you, but we want to spend a little time with you personally, talking about what we've got going on and how you dig in to figure out what is important when you have to make this kind of a decision. And so Randy's here still saying hi. Hello, Randy. But as we finish up here, I think it's very important a lot of people understand this is a big decision. You need to talk to the experts, and that's what we try to bring to you. And also, part of the show, obviously, is something we enjoy being able to bring to somebody is a little bit of the tricks of the trade. They're sharing inside information a little bit about how they run a business, how to be successful, and that, I think, is something that is very valuable, and we appreciate you taking a little extra time to share with people a little bit about that and make our planet a little bit better place.
I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. This is the Your Little Castle Show. We will continue to bring experts in our community, and we want to do that as a matter of helping make this world a little bit better place. Watch our live YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've got it all out there, but also watch it on our guests' social media and websites and get the information from them, because they will also wrap that in some other good information as we help coach them to make sure they're giving out the best that they can to help our little planet and make this world just a little bit better place. All right, everybody. This is Your Little Castle Show. Giddy up.